Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight's presentation by Dave Purcell. You don't know him. Dave is our current reigning two-time photographer of the year, and he's a very esteemed portrait, travel, and landscape photographer. So he's going to give us some of his tips and tricks of Lightroom so we can all learn a little something and be a little more like Dave. So without further ado, Dave, I'm going to let you have it. And take
let's see if I can do this.
All right.
We can see your screen, young man.
Okay. So, I'm co-vice president of the club too. Boy, I wonder how I can get rid of this little screen here.
Oh, have you got the
lone tree thing up? Okay, I'll just wing it. Try to move it around here. This talk is Lightroom tips and tricks, and so I to be honest, I've never given this from start to finish, so I'm pretty sure it's either an hour or 4 hours long. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be covering maybe some efficiency things with some shortcuts and some masking, some editing, and how I would take certain pictures and edit them. And I think the examples that I'll give will show you a little bit of how to think about some of the masking tools now that they're kind of revolutionary and revolutionizing your editing in Lightroom. And I'll try to go from the beginning for those of you who are just more or less starting out in Lightroom to more advanced and more advanced and more advanced. So if you stick around, you'll probably learn something along the way. The first things I like to do, the shortcuts I use a lot up here in the top left, the navigator, you can zoom in 100%, 200%. This is also
free stuff.
Something that's, you can change it here to be 300% or whatever. What I really like to do is hit Command or Control and the plus key or the minus key. And it goes in and out, and that quickly brings me in to be able to edit something. Then I can go back here, fit. And you'll notice when I hit the plus smaller, it's saved up here, my last sizing here. For efficiency's sake too, everybody has a flow. They go from basic panels, corrections, whatever it might be here. If you want to put them in the order that you normally go down, and Lightroom has its order, if you right click on any one of these name tags here and say customize the develop panel, it will let you put things in the order that you normally do. So if I don't use lens corrections, I can just click on it, drag it to the bottom, and there it is in lens correction. And it will order your panel over here on the right so that you can just go down in a normal flow. If you totally screw things up, you can hit default to the original order. If you hit save, it's going to ask you to log out and log back in, and then it'll be saved. So I'll just cancel that. But I found that if I usually have a specific order that I use Lightroom in, so that really helps out. First thing that I usually do with every single photo is I hit this auto button in the basic panel, and it tells me what Lightroom thinks. Now, this used to be the just a terrible auto thing, and we used to call it the underdeveloped button, and it would just underexpose every single picture you ever did. But what I really like about it is that it also picks the white and the black points. So it expands your histogram from one edge to another. And if you click, hold down the Alt or the Option button and click on the whites or the blacks, it'll show you where the whites are starting to come in or where the blacks are coming in. and it'll automatically pick that slider button. Strangely enough, it also has an idea about what it thinks that your true white point and black point should be. And if you hit the shift key and double click on white and double click on black, you'll notice that they changed, and it's Lightroom's guess as to what the best exposure is, not just what where the whites are coming in and where they're not. One of the next things down the panel, by the way, this lens correction, I always click these two buttons here: remove chromatic aberration and then enable the profile. Sometimes it doesn't have the profile and you can search them, but I have no idea why you wouldn't always have this clicked for remove chromatic aberration. No guess as to why they did that. I take a lot of pictures when I'm traveling, so I come up with a lot of buildings. So I usually, in my order, one of the first things I do is I hit auto here, and it shows me what straightening is. Also, and auto will give you some distortion on your picture as if you're standing there looking up. If you want it just straight up and down, you hit this full button, and it will make every single thing in here straight. You can also go to guided, and it'll let you do four lines here, and it has a button here that's magnifying it, so I can pull down here, and then let's match it over on this side. I pull it here, it straightens it here. Let's take one from this top corner here to this top corner, and let's say this bottom corner to this bottom corner. So the guide will tell you exactly what it thinks. And then what you can also do is, you see how it went off the top of the screen here. You can go to scale and you can pull back and actually get your picture back. And so then you can pick the crop that you want. Let's just say that I want to come in here and be, I don't know, somewhere around here, and I don't know, we'll come in a little bit here. And you know, say you're editing for Photoshop, and I know in Photoshop, and I'm just going to hit close here, that I can go into Photoshop with content aware fill and get sky back. So now I've extended my canvas thing, kept the peak of this here. And so that's, you know, the scale button is extremely handy for that. While we're here in this button, let's look at some of the healing brush. It used to be just the clone tool here and the healing brush here, but in the latest edition here, it actually has a content aware healing brush. So it takes a little bit of a while to think about things here. And what I'm going to do is hit on Command or Control plus. Let's go in here. I'm holding down the space button, moving around here. So it still is the weakness in the system. And I didn't like that pick, so I'm going to do another shortcut, which again is Command or Control Z. It undoes that. By the way, if you want to go back to what it was, you can hit Shift Command Z, and it'll bring you back to what you did. So let's just do another content aware. I go in and do a lot of editing here. Let's see. And one of the things I do to make this quicker is I'll just click on this and it picks a spot. I'm not sure if you know this, but if you hit the / key, that's the one underneath the question mark, and you hit it repeatedly, it'll just keep picking spots and spots and spots until you figure out which one you might like. Also, if you pick a spot and let's just say this, and it picks something crazy. Of course, I'm going to hold down the shift key. You can place it somewhere. If you have a spot that's dramatically different from what it looks like, even though this is the same color wall, it's going to blur on you. So my suggestion is pick something that looks kind of the same, and suddenly it fits in really, really nice. And then you're going to hate this tool just a little less. Like I said, I still think this is the blind spot of Lightroom. To do any good healing at all, you're still in, you have to go to Photoshop. And even zooming out, let's see, what it will not do, and I'll pick content aware up here in the top right. If I try to get over here and fill this top area in, it will not do it. It only recognizes what's in, the picture currently, and you can't fill in anything like that. Next, let's look at some white balance. If it's obviously wrong, you can just play with white balance yourself by trying to do the sliders. I like to do the custom one and just see what the auto says. This actually made it cooler than I think. However, it usually makes it just a little bit warmer. If you don't like this choice, of course, you can tweak it to whatever you like to do. Also, just like with the white point and the black point slider, you hit the shift key and double click on the WB or white balance. It's what Lightroom thinks makes a good photo. You can also take this dropper and try to pick a neutral gray color, which is a dark gray. It's usually sort of, in a shadow, and then see if it did a good job or not. You'll notice, when you pick enable the lens correction, you can see it's taking the vignette away from the corners, by the way. And so you're going to definitely have to put a vignette back on here. While we're here, let's look at the sharpening. And this little box right here in the details section, if you click here and then drag it over here, then that's going to be what is in this little preview button. I sharpen everything, even if I'm going to go into my own third-party software like Topaz Sharpen AI or anything like that. There's something about sharpening in a raw file that makes it just help it a little bit better, so that when you go into your third-party software, it makes it a little better. I found that usually sharpening, I'm somewhere between 70 and 80. Now, of course, this is going to be dependent upon each picture you have, because a lot of them are sharper or blurrier than others. Also, some have more or less noise to them. And then I take the masking brush, I hold down the Alt or the Option, and then I slide, and it's gonna tell me where I'm gonna sharpen. The white is where I'm sharpening, and the black is unaffected. So I never sharpen an entire picture. I go in and I specifically sharpen. I also use this tool, and by the way, normally I'll say most of my photos tend to be somewhere in the 60 to 70 masking. I don't know what that is, that a percent or whatever. I always use the sharpening in conjunction with the luminance. And I used to say this amount here and this amount here should add up to 100, because that's what the system was built to do. That's not always true. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of noise reduction, a little bit more. I find, though, that the ideal spot of noise reduction tends to be somewhere between 15 and 20. So I'm usually somewhere around 80. I'm usually somewhere about 20 on that particular thing. Let's see. Do we have any questions up until this point?
Uh, no. Nope.
Okay, good. I want to try to get away with the easy stuff first, and maybe we can get into some more interesting things quicker. Let's get into the masking. So you've got your normal ones that you've always seen, the brush, the linear gradient that, what did they call this before? Graduated filter, and then the radial filter. And then they added the subject in the sky. And these three in the box over here on on the top right are the AI, the newest, the greatest AI powered masks. And then they added objects not too far after that, and then the range. And this is both color range, luminance, and depth. We're really not going to go into depth. I've only used this once, and the photos that have a depth range are, say, a smartphone that, like a iPhone that has like a three camera or three lens picture, and they actually take depth, and you can mask near, mid, and far. So I don't have any iPhone pictures in this presentation, so we won't get any. One of the first things is on that list was objects. So I'm going into objects, and you can do it in one of two modes. You can do it with a box, or you can do it with a brush. So let's try box first. By the way, first let's I'm going to hit Control Z. Oop, that got me completely out. It went back. Oh, and here's another thing. Here's the masks, but if you want to get back to the basic panel and the develop panel, this is the button you hit right here. So masks, develop module. So again, I always hit auto. Be aware that the auto button always does something I really don't like, and it'll boost the vibrance and the saturation every single time. So to get rid of that, I just double click on those two, and you can double click on any one of the words and it'll reset it to 0. If you want to reset the whole thing, you click profile or mask. With the landscapes and cityscapes, sometimes vibrance is good, but I'll tell you right now, try not to have them on portraits. It will screw you up. You can add vibrance and saturation later on, but just know when you hit that auto button, it's going to throw in vibrance and saturation, and you may not want it. So again, we're going to go back to objects. We're going to try hit the box, and this is actually pretty brilliant. I won't even go around the whole object, but let's see how it selects the rock. And here's the thing. Oh, here's another tip. You can do the overlay with white on black, and that's more of a mask that you would see in Photoshop. I usually do color overlay, and it comes with red. By the way, you can turn on this and off with the O key. The shortcut key is O. I'm hitting O, I toggle back to O. Red appears in a lot of images for me, so I don't like it personally. Especially if you have like this on a lower opacity and then you're dealing with a sunset. And that's how I think Lightroom is normally set up, is with red, but on a lower opacity. Just know you can change this opacity. I choose neon green, because even if I'm dealing with a photo that has a lot of green in it, it's never this obnoxious neon green. It never is. So my suggestion if you really want to see masks, go and just double click on this, and you can actually choose any color you want in the rainbow. You really have a preference. If your signature color is pink, go ahead. But like I said, neon green is what I normally do. Let's do another mask. I'm clicking above this now, And I'm going down to objects. Let's do the paintbrush. And again, you don't really have to paint the whole thing. You can just, tell it partly what's there and hover over it. And it does a pretty amazing job. I'm going to hit the O key on and off. And, it's pretty cool. Okay, so let's go to another type of a brush. Next one in line. Again, go to develop, go to the masks. Let's pick the brush key. And if you have nothing picked and you hit, I'm going to click on preset and everything is zeroed out. And I pick the mask, it's going to show the mask. And as soon as I pick something exposure wise, it's going to go to this. And at that point, I have to hover over the little icon or hit the O key to show me the mask. I personally, and I'm going to undo this with a Control Z. And for an eye, a little bit of exposure, a little bit of contrast, saturation, maybe some clarity, and then you paint in here. And you can do this several different ways. Of course, you can just paint on this, and you can see where it's painting. Maybe we need to have a little bit more in here. Or a lot of times what I'll do, and I'm going to get rid of this with the undo that. A lot of times I'll use a custom thing, and I've got one in here for irises. So I'll pick my choice of the iris thing. I'll make this, I'll take the feather down a little bit. And if this was a round eye, I would just click the round bit and it would really show me, what I've done. But I usually like to make the center of the eye black. So I hit the Alt key, it turns from plus to minus. I'm going to take some of the feather off of this. And I try to paint, I can paint in here on an eye that's this large. But a lot of times you go to hit the minus key and it won't let you go in here. So I do a two-step process when I'm doing eyes. A lot of times I will first come up with a brush. Oh, by the way, if you want to do this yourself, you can set a whole bunch of exposures. Maybe let's take the black point down, little white point, make it just a little bit bluer. And if you go and click on custom and go all the way down to the bottom of this list, you can save the current settings as a new preset. And that's going to save you a lot of time. Like I said, I have one for iris, so I just use my iris setting. But what I do is, like I said, I do a 2-point thing. I click right here so that when I do a larger click on this, and then I click negative, the point where it's going to give me a hard time is down over here. And so I can color in here. Usually I'll hit the O key so that I can see where I'm painting and, just click. Hit the, let's really make this a little bit saturated here. Let's get a lot of clarity in this particular one. With eyes, this is another just brush. Let's create another one, brush. And I have a custom brush for eyes. And the key is not only to up the exposure, and I have it at about 30, but the key really is the saturation, and it needs to be negative. So anything that's red in here is going to be less red. And I think I'm suffering here. I had the flow down a lot. So I'm coloring in here. You can also go to auto mask and see if it will automatically pick along in the white, because it kind of goes by color. And then I'm going to hit the O key and see what it did. I'm going to hit the Alt key and paint away what I don't like. And then, so then I have a, you know, I would be much carefuler if I'm obviously doing this for a client or whatever. And I'm going to re-click on this. And so just now, oh, also you could, if you go back and forth between auto mask and non-auto mask, you can go up here and use A and B brush and have A be like one with out auto mask, and B is a brush with auto mask. I'm not sure if I find that outrageously helpful. I just click on and off because it's just as many clicks. But if you have a set brush and it has a certain settings, you can just go from A to B. And if you have a lot of photos that are about the same, then you know, that might be useful. Let's go to the linear gradient, or the old graduated filter. And let's learn about this thing. So I have a new mask. What I'm going to do is hit the preset just so it's going to show me the mask and not my updates. There's a few ways to use this. If you drag from the bottom slowly up, it's going to really blend. About the point where you can notice it by your eye is this middle section here. If you want to do it a little bit tighter, let's just do a Control Option. Okay, oop. I have a feeling it was going to do that. If you want to do a really tight gradient, in other words, not a big feather, you can just go really tight and it's going to give you something really sharp. Also, you can see I'm sort of fighting with this, going left and right. You hold on the Shift key, it's going to lock in the linear gradient tool to be exactly horizontal, or for that matter, you can do it. Let's do another linear gradient. Locks in an exactly vertical one as well. So let's just get rid of this mask. I can delete it. And now I have this mask. Let's just for grins lighten this up, pull some saturation, really give it some clarity. And then let's get another one from the top, linear gradient, and let's kind of come down a little bit, you know. And then I'm thinking, well, you know, I really didn't want to pull a really great gradient. Here's something that's really clever. I'm sitting here right at the top of the trees. If I hit the Alt key and I pull this, it's going to keep that middle bar exactly stationary. So now I'm playing with the gradient, knowing that that middle bar is exactly where I want it. And now I'm coming in, I'm darkening the sky. I can make it yellow. I can make it, let's say it's bluer. Let's make, I love in skies to use Lightroom's dehaze. Just know that dehaze can be a really heavy hammer, and use it sparingly with color photos, but you'll find out that you can really crank it up on black and white photos. Let's just say I don't like the color that I picked of the sky being either blue or red. You can go down to this color box here, just below, and you can click on this and you can pick whatever color you want. A lot of people pick blue, and then you can use this adjustment slider here to put a little bit or a lot of bit of color in. So it doesn't have to be limited to your like white balance settings of temperature and tint. It can be something custom. let's add another linear gradient. Let's just say I've done the sky, I've done the ground, but now I want to think about the middle. Now, normally I would just take a brush tool. But in fact, let's just do a Control Z. You know, you could do a brush tool and you can click on one side. Let's do a big feather on this. Let's make this a little bit lighter. Let's take dehaze and let's haze it up. So instead of making it, you know, and let's really crank the saturation. I can click once on this side and I can go to completely the other side, hold down Shift, and it's going to drag a horizontal bar across. Now we can subtract from this, of course, with another brush and paint it out. But the purpose of this talk is to think about linear gradients for this second. So I'm hitting again the Controller Command Z. I'm going to create a linear gradient. I'm going to pull it from the top all the way down here. I'm holding down the Alt key to make a sharp line along the bottom. But what did I just do? I have it in the sky as well, right? So what can we do about that just to have it in the middle? Well, let's subtract something. Let's subtract another linear gradient. And I'm subtracting a linear gradient from the top and I'm pulling it down. So now I have three gradients. I've got one at the top, the bottom, and I've pulled a third one that I subtracted. And here's by hitting the O key, you can see where it is. And again, I can hit the Alt key and make it even sharper. So you can start thinking with these new tools in Lightroom, creative ways to use old tools. Let's see.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
So as you were trying to like subtract the sky from that, could you have also done a mask subtract, select the sky?
Yeah, I was.
Or is that for later on?
Fancier tools in a while. I'm just trying to make you think a little bit with the old funky tools.
I won't ask any more questions.
We're going to be really stepping it up here pretty soon.
Okay, thanks.
But let's just go to the radial gradient and let's play with some stuff that we've already done. Let's see what we can do, because to be honest with you, the radial gradient, probably my favorite tool. So Dave always starts with the auto key. I might just bump this up just a little bit. I know that there's going to be saturation and vibrance, but since I'm in a street scene here, I don't really care. I'm going to be clicking on the enable the profile correction and the chromatic aberration. And now I'm going to see what Lightroom thinks is straightening. So I click the auto key. And it's done a pretty good job, but I don't like the crop 100%. So I can go up here to the crop tool and click, and it's going to give me this panel. Also, I'm going to hit Control Z, Command or Control Z, and just know that the shortcut is R. So you hit R and it gives you this, and this might save you some time and effort. So I've clicked auto again, and let's just say I want to bring it down to somewhere almost to the top of the building. I want to get rid of this building on the left. I don't like this person here very much, so I'm going to bring it in just a little bit, or maybe almost to this. So I'm going to hit return. I'm going to try to get rid of this little thing. So I'm going to go up and see what the healing brush is going to do. Let's do the content aware. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to work because this is still the tool. I think this is the downfall, but it didn't do too bad of a job. So we'll just close that and go with it. Let's make this, let's now use these tools. Let's do the radial gradient. I'm going to actually zero this preset out, and then I'm going to just add a little exposure. I'm going to add seeing in the shadows, and I want to see what's in here. And then I'm going to pull a gradient across here just to see what's in there. Now, one of the first things I do with the radial gradient is also I play with the feather. Sometimes I want only feather, and I take this center point and I just put it kind of in the middle, hardly have any. And then you can adjust to taste here. Let's get another one. Let's light this light. Let's take the radial gradient, and I know you can use a brush tool, but I'm going to really take up the exposure to almost the top. I'm going to pull a little radial gradient around here. I might make this just a little bit yellow. And then I'm going to take a second radial gradient. And you can see over here, it's a Shift M. If you're doing a lot of relighting and using the radial gradient, this is a lifesaver for all this. Linear gradient is M, brush tool is K. These are all the three I learned over and over and use. So let's pull another radial gradient down here, except the light is way too bright. But let's think of light, and let's make it, you've got a light, it's going to be lighting up the building below it. In fact, let's see what this looks like. So in fact, I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring the opacity way up so I can really see my masks. Well, I really wouldn't light exactly over the top, so let's just subtract with a brush and let's get it away from the top. And I'm going to hit the O, it disappears. In fact, let's close these and let's make the scene darker. Let's make this kind of a nighttime scene where I've got this light and it's casting a little bit of a shadow here. Let's do another one. I'm going to hit Shift M. There's another radial gradient. It's, I should have taken the presets to 0. It's lighting up the people below it. I'm going to make this a little bit warmer. Now I'm playing with where the light is hitting. Let's do another one. I'm going to hit Shift M, another radial gradient. Before I pull it, I'm going to hit the preset and I'm going to make this maybe just 52. I don't know, make it just a little bit yellower, maybe a little bit of clarity, a little saturation. Let's do a radial gradient that's lighting up the tables here. And this is just in general, but I want to light up this table really over here on the left. I'm going to just, so I'm going to, and I really don't like how yellow I made that, unfortunately. So I'm going to do another Shift M. I'm going to really light these guys up because there's one of the focuses that I want. And then let's make the whole area just a little bit more interesting. Let's take another radial gradient, another Shift M, and let's pull one. It doesn't have to be up and down or around. It can be square or I'm sorry, at an angle. Really highlighting what this building is doing, let's just say. So I love these radial gradients because they do, in fact, really have a lot of feather to them. So I could do the brush on a high feather, but for some reason, they just look more realistic when you're doing it this way. Let's just take one more. I know I'm really killing you with the radial gradients, but let's pull one over here. Let's make this just a little bit more interesting off to the side. And I'll take a photo and just start playing. Let's get out of here. Let's do a linear gradient. Let's make the road a little bit darker with a high bunch of texture. And since this is night, is kind of isn't too terrible. So let's see what we did. I'm going to do the / before and after, and just with those dozen different radial gradients, we've totally relit a scene here. So that's one of the tools that I just really love. Now that we're pretty familiar with masks, let's kind of combine this with profiles up here in the top in the basic section. Let's make this a little more dramatic. Now, I don't like that I can see some of these cars over here, but this and the top seems to be blown out a little bit. But in general, it's a pretty interesting thing. I'm going to go to the profiles. It's going to drop down. It has a whole bunch of things that you can make this picture look like. But let's just go to black and white. It has a whole bunch of different things. Now, I personally would probably go to like silver effects if I was going to do black and white. But this actually does have red filters, white filters, orange, whatever it might be. And you can kind of click on one to the next. Now let's just pick one. It's the orange filter. Then you got to close it, and then you can tweak from here. Let's go and make some darkening with some linear gradients. So this is a negative. Let's do, I don't know, let's just keep it about a stop. I'm going to pull a very tight gradient through here. Let's see, maybe I want to make it just a little darker, or let's take down the highlights so the car doesn't stand out. Let's do another one. I'm just going to hit M, which is the shortcut key, and I'm on the other side. Again, I'll take the highlights down. Let's do a radial gradient. And let's darken up this skylight a little bit. Maybe let's up the clarity so the things come through. Let's do another radial gradient. I'm going to just this time shift M. Let's brighten this area. So double click on the presets and make this there. So, within just a few minutes, we can really change this photo. Let's just say we want to really brighten up these columns here that are in front. I'm going to use a brush key. I'm going to hardly have any feather whatsoever. And I could go down here and I could click, or I could try to paint in. Let's see. I could paint in, especially if I had the auto mask, these columns, and that wouldn't be a bad way to do this. Of course, there are many roads to Mecca, so let me do this without the auto mask. Let me get a brush that I think is just about as wide as the column, and of course you do a shift click up here, and it's going to draw a straight line right down the column. But even cooler, I'm going to Command or Control Z, get rid of that. I can actually make this brush as big as the top and do a shift click, and it's going to do like a cone shape. So it's going to go from thin on the bottom to thick on the top. So it's going to save me some time and whatever there. Let's get into even higher tools here. Again, I'm going to try to do an auto here. And of course, this is a person, so I'm double clicking on vibrance and saturation to get rid of it. I see that there was the bed was out of here, so I'm going to go back up to my healing tool. Let's click on the new content aware tool. I'm going to click in the corner, see what it does. It didn't do too bad of a job. I'm going to do a recrop, so I'm going to hit R as a shortcut key. I'm going to come here, and having Katie here on this bed is cool, but man, I really hate that the sheets were obviously folded and whatever. So let's do I could do, first of all, I could do a subject, and it's going to pick her. And of course, let's do Dave's general enhancements. This is just maybe too bright, obviously, but we're just making her, let's do a little more contrast. Now, you can do this, and then you can get another mask and do the background, and it'll pick around her right there. Or, and again, I'm going to undo with the Command Z. I can just duplicate and invert this mask. This is a very, very handy time-saving step. And suddenly I'm going to whiten these a bit. I'm going to take the clarity to hardly anything, maybe the contrast down. And, you know, I've kept some of the texture in the sheet, some, but not too much to really, I mean, I've kind of fixed my problem, and that's using like the subject. Let's kind of do another one. I can do, let's just pick the background here, and I might, let's just look at what the thing did. It just picked the background and not the subject. Again, I can do a duplicate and invert, and then just get the girl here next to the plane. And of course, you know, I'm not getting her clothes. What I really don't like is that the newest version doesn't have something for clothes. I'll show you some people masks here in just a little bit, but you know, I could take this mask, and again, I can subtract or add to it like you can every mask. And let's just subtract with a brush, let's just say. And I mean, I could do her face, and then I can take the, you know, this up, and this is just her clothes. There's definitely better ways to do this that I'll show you in a minute, but let's just undo this. What I might do is do the exposure here, and then let's add to it with a brush tool. And what's brilliant about this, and this is, you'll see when we start looking at intersect, I'm just painting in here over her. I don't have to be outrageously precise. Let's take up the exposure. Shoot, I did that wrong. Because I was adding to the selection. Sorry. It's already added. What I was gonna, let's see. Let's take this mask, and we brightened it. And I'll just show you. You can take this and you can intersect it with, let's just say, a linear gradient, and it'll show up only where the two masks are together. So it's taking a combination of the first mask with the second mask. And I'll get more specific here in a little bit. But this is also something we can do a radial gradient. And like I said, I like to do radial gradients that aren't necessarily expected. Let's take one. Oh, by the way, you can hold down the shift key. Well, I'll do that in a minute. You can hold on the shift key, and it'll draw a perfect circle if you want to do that. So let's just take this radial gradient. Let's do it at an angle. Let's increase the exposure. So I'm getting a little bit of light that might be coming from the sun at an angle. Let's create another radial gradient, and I'll hold down the shift key this time. And so it's drawing a perfect circle. But let's just pull this out, bring it over here. Let's just give this a little bit of an interest. Let's do another radial gradient, shift M. Let's pull one down through here. So you can see I'm just kind of relighting the plane just a little bit. Let's say I don't like this tarp that's over here. What would we do? Well, I might pull an object, and let's do paint this thing in a little bit. It's gonna pick that mask. It's done a pretty good job. And let's just darken that down. Maybe make it a certain color. Let's make it a kind of a tarp color. Then I can adjust the color a little bit, especially if I give the tarp a little bit of clarity. So it's dark and it's there, but it's more interesting. As far as picking subjects, what if we have multiple people in a picture? So here's a group of people, and if you just hit the subject key, it's going to pick everybody. And of course, you can hit invert and get the background, duplicate and invert and get the background if you wanted to. Let's make the background just a little bit duller and less saturation to pull. Let's just say I like the people in general. Let's delete this mask. Let's say I want to be specific to the mom of these 3 daughters. And so if I hit mask, you can not only go to select subject, but you can go to select people. And when you do, it's going to give you a list of all the people that it detects in the picture. And so I'm going to click on her, and then it's going to come up with another box, and you can pick face, skin, eyebrows, whatever it might be, lips, teeth. Let's just say on her face and her body skin, I'm going to create a mask here. And she's too white in comparison to her daughters. So maybe let's just pull down the highlights a little bit. Maybe that solves my problem. Maybe I can up the temperature, or maybe let's go to the color box and give her more of a skin color. And I don't know if you can notice this, but up here in the top left is a visualization of how it would look along the way too. So okay, and then let's do another mask. Her hair is way too crazy for me, so I'm gonna pick her again, and let's do the hair. I'm gonna create a mask, and let's bring down the highlights. Let's get rid of this and do the highlights. So suddenly she has a little bit more highlights there. Also, just so you know, if you want to do the background here and you think that you didn't have you weren't at f2.8 or anything, you want to blur the background, of course you can take the clarity down, the sharpness down, the contrast down, whatever, and blur the background that way. And I know you can say, well, maybe it doesn't look right because this bush should be in focus. So let's just subtract with a brush tool this, and suddenly the bush, the ground, this is all in focus now, but the trees in the very back are out of focus. So in just a couple masks, I've made it look like my camera is a little bit, I was a brilliant photographer, and I did a better job at taking this photo than I actually did in person. Do we have any questions right now, Bruce?
I don't see any questions right now.
None? Okay.
You've definitely.
I got a quick question.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So when you were doing all the radial masks,
Yep.
let's say you wanted to repeat kind of the same lighting scheme and stuff, is there a way to like duplicate it?
There's not. If it doesn't show up, and I'll show you how to make your own mask and whatever, but if it's not a mask, and let's just pull this over here. It's not one of these three, background, sky, or subject. I mean, it'll duplicate it, but it'll
No.
just keep it in the same exact spot.
No,
When
let me clarify. So you create another radial mask and you duplicate all of the adjustments you made from the previous mask.
Right, so if I click, in other words, if I click this picture here, and then I go to
Same picture,
same picture?
new mask. So like you lit that one light.
Oh, okay, yeah. You
And there's-
can right click and you can duplicate that mask.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And then you can just drag it
Perfect.
to.
I couldn't remember. I thought that was something you could do, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I thought you meant the positioning of the masks.
No.
And I'll show you in a second, when we make our own masks, what makes sense to do and what does not make sense to do.
We do
Okay,
have
let's-
one more quick question. Are you going to cover HSL and color grading?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
A little bit. Let's do select sky. And basically let's see, I think of 4 ways to select the sky. The first, of course, is, and let's do one of my custom brushes for general enhancing, is to paint it in with a brush. Now this might be the worst way that anybody's ever done this. But remember, you can also subtract and with another brush tool. And there'll be much more eloquent ways to subtract here as we get deeper and deeper into this. But that's pretty much one way to do it. And then, of course, and let's just make this a little bit nicer photo. I could pull a linear gradient here, and let's make this darker sky, maybe just a little blue, a bunch of clarity, a tinge of dehaze, and I can pull down here, and then of course, or I can just have it hover over here, and it just kind of fades into there, which is probably the preferable thing to do. But if you brought it all the way down, of course, you can do a subtract with another linear gradient. We'll get into some of the cooler ways with color ranges and everything else in a minute. But for now, let's just, get rid of it with the brush tool. So I can do this, or let's get out of here with a Command or Control Z. And let's do the sky. Let's do another picture, in fact. So again, let's make this a little bit nicer photo. And I'm going to do the new sky. And I think the sky is actually fairly brilliant. It really shows you. I've had it not mess up. I mean, unless there's clouds at the ground, this is really an amazing tool. One of the things I never do, however, is make my adjustments go all the way to the horizon, or in this case, to the the mesas here. I always would subtract from this, and I'll show you how you do you can intercept this too. But let's subtract with a linear gradient, and let's just bring it up off there so then let's make this a really big gradient so that then my final mask, by the way, it shows you masks all the way down, sky, linear gradient, mask. This top mask is what controls or the final mask for this project. I'm going to hit the O key. So you can see I brought the sky mask, but I subtracted a linear gradient. So it's grading up into this thing. You can also do a intersect, and let's just talk about intersections for a second. I kind of touched on it a little bit before, but intersect is where you have one mask intersecting another. And let's just take this plain blue screen. I'm going to take a gradient. Let's see. Let's have no feather on it. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm just going to pull a round circle, and let's make this darker. So if I go up here and then I intersect this mask, I can do it with, sky, background, whatever. Let's just do it with a linear gradient. And so I'm pulling a gradient from here across, and you can see that my mask of the dark thing only appears, I'm holding down Alt, where the two intersect. And what makes this brilliant is that now that this mask is here, if I were to paint in over the top, you can see that this linear gradient should be out over here and should be out over here, but it has a very, very crisp line. So you can actually intersect two different things. And in fact, let's go back to this girl, and let's just reset this completely. So I'm selecting the subject, which is all of her here, and let's just make her, double click on preset, let's make her just a little bit brighter. But I want to intersect this with a linear gradient. So right now, remember, she completely is selected. If I pull a linear gradient from the bottom up, it's only doing where this linear gradient meets down here. So basically her clothes. So let's just brighten her clothes, and it's not affecting her face. So, and like I said, one of the masks that does not exist even when you do people is clothes. So suddenly I've got a mask for the clothes. And even if I really wanted to subtract with a brush tool, I could get in here and really paint her hair and be very, 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 very specific. But it's kind of, all of a sudden, it's just an amazing thing. So I've got a selection of the sky, and then let's intersect it. Instead of subtracting from the bottom up with a linear gradient, let's intersect this with a linear gradient from the top down. And so, and my mouse isn't working as well as it should. Might have to, let's reset this because something is going wrong here. So I'm going to select the sky. I need to invert this. For some reason, let's try one more time. Select the sky. Okay, so let's make this a little bit darker, a little more texture. And then I'm going to intersect it with a linear gradient from the top down. I'm going to hold shift so it's square. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. And so now it's only, so it's the same as, in this particular instance, the same as subtracting a linear gradient from the top. But in this instance, I'm taking and intersecting from the top down. So it's only taking the top part for this to be active. Finally, we were just talking about the sky, and we can do color. And of course, now we have range. We have color range, luminance. So I'm going to click a range of color, and I'm going to click right here. And suddenly you can see it picked that particular color. Now you can go up here. This is what makes this really great. I'm going to hit the O key here so you can see the mask. I have a refine button here, and I'm going to just do the slider. So only the color blue, and let's make this darker, you know, and it's showing up not only in the sky, but also in the water, right? Now let's make it really cool. Now they don't have a mask for clouds, but you know, what am I going to do? I want a cloud mask. So how about we take this, duplicate it, and invert it, and it's got, you know, all the clouds, but it also has these trees in here. So let's intersect this, or no, let's not intersect. Let's subtract a color range, and let's just get rid of these trees. And then I'm going to refine that. Oop. I should, let's go back here. So I'm going to intersect with a color range, and I'm going to click on the green. And so now my mask, I think my computer's slowing down more and more and more. But I should have a mask of just the clouds. So let's just see. Oop, I need to invert that. So this is basically just taking the clouds. So by inverting it and then subtracting the color range, I can get rid of, you know, it's opposite of the blue, and I can get rid of the color range of green. Now, what you were saying about HSL, we've always had the ability to pick color and range within the HSL screen, but it's very limited. So I can play with the luminance of this picture over here. But of course, everybody knows probably that if you take one of these buttons over here, just to the left of the names, you can click on it, and then you can make it darker. It's a darker luminance or a brighter luminance. Or if I want to go to hue and I pick a specific color. So in other words, I'm picking by color range, and let's just make this, you know, more yellow, or let's make this more red. But it's limited because now I don't have a mask, and you can see it's made the hue more red, and it's made the luminance of that orange darker, but it's also affecting her skin to a certain extent. So like I said, we've always had this ability, but adding the ability to have masks in the HSL is absolutely brilliant. Let me show you what this is actually doing. And so let's do range, color range, and let me go to a mask that you're kind of used to, white on black, which is Photoshop mask. And let me just pick a color, and I'm going to hit O, and it's picked blue, but you can also see when I picked that color, I did a little box. And so it also bled into this purple. So we know that there's blues in this purple, but we can also go up here again, remember, and we can refine this color to go down to just that blue. Interestingly enough, if I take 3 colors here, and I'm going to show the mask here. Oh, it's showing the complete blend of all those colors. You can also use this a different way. You can click on, well, let's take the mask off. You can click on the red and click on the yellow and click on the green. So I'm going to click on there. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and then it adds. So before when I pulled the box across there, you saw that it had a mix of those colors. If I do a shift plus color, plus color, plus color, it only shows that color. And of course, if I pick over here, it's only that color, shift, only that color. If I do a box around these, it's a blend of the colors. This also works with luminance. And if I do, let's just click on this, you can see what's really, really interesting to me on the luminance is the luminance value, and I just did a 1 click, is not only the brightness or the darkness of this picture, but it's also affected by the color. And I don't know if this is kind of gets into the core of what I start thinking about color theory of what colors are complementary, what luminance values. If you ever looked at like Miss Manners, and they say never wear blue and brown because it's the same luminance value and it's not complementary. This is one of the reasons. So I just clicked on once, and you saw that this is affected over here. What if I just do a range of color? Okay, so now it's got the complete range. Now this one also has a slider bar, and you can have a box here and you can refine your luminance, and you can click in the middle, or they also have these little slider bars, and this is the fade into that particular thing. If I take this box and I move it completely to the left or completely to the right, you can, so I think it's, if you want to just general luminance, make sure that you're combining different things. If you want specific luminance, then you just click on things. I think this is kind of really fascinating as to the way this works. Are there any general questions right this second after seeing that crazy demonstration?
I don't see any questions in the chat right now.
Okay, so how would I use this? Well, first of all, let's do a subject mask, and let's just play with her, I don't know, temperature or whatever. And then let's pick a color mask. Now, let me just tell you right now, when I pick color range, if I pick just one color and I'm playing with it, it can get really funky. It can get really, really funky. So my suggestion to you when you're dealing with a color range is to actually do a box around so you get a variety. And then you can come down here and play with, whatever that you want to make that color. And like I said, you can make it another color if you want, or add different colors in. You can also let's just make this just a little brighter. Let's get rid of this. And let's just add another one. Let's do the greens this time. And So again, my suggestion is to take a general area and let's just, darken it up. So you can play with luminance, you can play with color, but like I said, I wouldn't push the colors too far. They tend to get wonky pretty darn quick. And I would also do a range of colors instead of a specific color, unless you have something really, really, really specific. I found that I've been doing some dodging and burning with the the luminance range, and we can make this really funky too. But let's just say I want to do a dodge. Well, first of all, let's make, of course it kicked me out. Let's make this picture a little bit more interesting with auto here. I'm going to take off the vibration or the vibrance and the saturation. And let's make a luminance mask. And I want to do dodging and burning. So I want to make the darks darker. I want to make the lights lighter so that these sand dunes really stand out. So let's pull a range over here. And I'm seeing the mask. That's pretty good mask. Maybe I don't like that it's so up here. So what would I do? I would subtract, I don't know, let's subtract a brush tool, click over here, shift click over here. It's gone. So now I'm only dealing with the sand dunes. Let's make the darks darker. Let's just increase the shadows a little bit. And again, let's do this kind of subtly. I could change the color. Let's make this just a little redder for the shadows. Let's do a duplicate and invert. And here's the mask, and it should be just the opposite. But of course, it's picked everything up here. So I'm going to subtract linear gradient. Down to here, I'm going to hold the Alt, make sure that that's a fine line. And then let's make the brights just a little bit brighter. So suddenly I'm dodging and burning with the luminance. And let's see the before and after. Let's do the backslash key under the delete. So they're before and after. And again, I've really pushed this for demonstration purposes, but this is something, you can certainly do. I found that this luminance actually works a little bit better on color or black and white stuff. So you can push it a bit more, just like the dehaze slide. So let's see what we've learned. Let's do a luminance range on the Italian. Let's see. This is actually the French Alps. So I'm going to pull something through here. I'm going to refine my pick with the sliders in that box. And I'm mostly in the middle. And as Bruce was pointing out, let's intersect this. Well, tell you what, let's subtract. Let's do a subtract sky. And the sky goes away. So I'm pretty much just in here. Let's refine it just. Okay. So here's my mask. So let's make this a little bit brighter. Let's take the clarity and just send it over the roof. The texture, let's make these mountains just tinge colder. Now let's take a sky mask. Let's select the sky. Let's make it really broody. I really, really like the dehaze in the sky. So I'm going to do this. I could make it blue by either doing a temperature slider or a color, but for now, let's just add a little texture and dehaze and do this. I don't really see the foreground very much, so let's do a color range. And I want to pick this brownish color here. And it's going to give me this mask. Okay. I'm going to increase the colors a little bit. I'm a little dissatisfied with the muckiness. So let's make it a color. Let's make it a little bit more brown. And that's a little bit more brown. And let's increase the saturation on that brown just a little bit. So close that out. So here's the before and after. I'm using the / or backslash before and after. So just with a few clicks and these slides, it's just brilliant, I think. How would you do this on a portrait? Well, first of all, I might make this, again, I'll do an auto, but again, it's a portrait. I'm taking the vibrance and the saturation away. Because I was down low and her legs are right at me, I'm a little bit dissatisfied with the angle. So I'm going to use the transform, and I'm going to go down here to the auto keys, and I'm going to make as if you can really make it, as if I was standing up a little bit higher. So let's make Brooke's torso just a little bit higher. And her legs, now do I need to take the aspect ratio and maybe make her fatter or thinner? I don't know. This is to taste also, but let's just do a constrained crop. I'm going to hit the R key for the cropping. I'm going to pull down here. Now, when I took this photo, this was just a sheet in between rooms, but I wanted to have this kind of appear as if this is window light, and she's standing against the windows, there's curtains. So what could I do? Let's take a radial gradient and let's have a lot of feather. Maybe make the exposure up at least one stop, maybe just a tinge of warmth. And let's just pull a gradient around her. Make it really bright. But of course, it's over her and not just the curtain. Well, let's make this just a little thinner. So what would I do? I mean, how do you get it off of her? Subtract it, right? Subtract subject. Boom. So she's sitting on the couch. She's got window light coming from behind. Her legs are a little bit way too much in my face here. So I'm taking a linear gradient, darkening down her legs. And let's just do a really, really long fade. And then we can apply to taste. I really like the couch. Let's take a color range. Let's make it brighter, and let's do purple couch. And then of course I'm going to probably want to do a vignette around here. So I can go down to the effects, and I'm going to pull a little bit of a vignette around. By the way, in vignettes, we had this discussion during our exhibition night the other day. I find that the sweet spot for highlight or for vignettes is somewhere around the 11 mark, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in here, where it is a vignette. But if the photo just comes up, you don't really notice it isn't. It's drawing the eye in, but it's not too much in your face. Let's go further. I want this to be a little bit moodier shot. So go up to this panel. Let's make her a little bit, everything darker, but let's make this really, really moody. So I'm going to take a linear gradient. And let's make it darker. Let's go down about a stop. Let's make this blue. And I'm going to pull this across her, but of course she's blue. What can I do about that? Well, we can subtract. How about we subtract a color range? So I'm going to do her face. And when I release this, I want you to look at her face. The blue that's on her face goes away. So now I have a blue linear gradient. And of course, if I want to, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hold down Alt. Now I can't right this second, but I've got a moody, dark picture, and she's back to her normal white balance. Here's another one. This was taken pretty well, but this is a one softbox. You can see it went onto the background, but let me just, I like that it goes from light to dark. I'm gonna probably lighten this up just a little bit, but I really want to enhance this gradient here. So let's do a linear gradient and let's make this light. So I'm really pulling about a stop, and here we go. But it's on her face. I really don't want that. What do? I subtract the subject. And there it is. I just want her face just a little bit brighter. So let me select people. She comes up here. I want her face skin. I'm going to create a mask. And so I'm going to just make it just a little bit brighter. What I'm disappointed in is I didn't have a rim light over here, over on her hair, and I really, really want one. So how could I do that? Let's just do another select subject. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit, but I only want it to appear as a rim light on her hair. So what do? Okay, here's an instance where I can intersect the mask. Let's do a brush tool this time. And remember, these are only going to appear where the two masks come together. So I'm going to do a huge feather, and it's only being, I'm going to hit O key to show you where it's going on here. So I'm only doing rim light around the outside. And like I said, this is so brilliant because it's a mask. It's not spilling over onto the background out over here. And then of course I can adjust to taste. So now I've increased the soft box look on the background. I've increased her face. I've fixed my lighting overnight. Like I said, it wasn't taken too terribly. Let's try another one. Here's one that I had a softbox down the left side of Everin, and I had a beauty light up on the top, but there's no fall off on the background. So let's do what we did exactly to Charlotte, and let's take a linear gradient, and let's crank it up a little bit. Let's pull it across here, but of course, I'm lighting her up way too much. So what do? Subtract the subject. So boom, I've got this here. I do want her a little bit brighter, so let's select the subject again. But let's just make it a little bit more, or let's just make this really interesting. Let's just say I wanted to show on this picture where I had this beauty dish here up on the top. So let's make it kind of brighter, but let's intersect it with another linear gradient that's coming down from here. And I'm going to hold the Alt key and really hone this in. And then I'm going to play with this lighting. So now it looks as if Dave was a really brilliant lighting master, and that we had the light coming in from there. Of course, this is another instance where I would take the vignette and add a little bit one there. Here's another one. Let's do another intersect. Again, I'm just kind of just relighting these things. Linear gradient. Let's make this dark and moody this time. Let's hit preset. Let's make about a thing. I like blue for some. Well, let's make this one yellow. And let's pull this across so you can see where the mask is. Let's make this even darker. Let's intersect this with a color range, and let's do here. And then I'm going to do a shift click there. So suddenly I've made this, a lot moodier. Here's a before and after. Let's just say I don't like the color of her hand. So in comparison, so let's add a mask. Let's go down to people. Let's pick her and let's do body skin and create a mask. And we're only dealing now, let's just only deal with this hand. So I'm going to subtract out with a brush this stuff here. So this hand is just a little bit too white. I'm going to bring it down with maybe highlights, and she's a little bit more tan than her hands. So let's make her hand more of a flesh color. And let's just darken that just a little bit. So we're really bringing together a bunch of different, people selects, and either getting rid of things by subtraction, and sometimes by intersection. Let's go back to a thing that we want to perhaps light. And again, maybe I always do auto just to see what it's like. This isn't bad. Let's go down to the transform. Let's hit auto and straighten it, see what it does. I'm fairly happy with this. Just like the other Italian scene, this scene is in Czech Republic. Let's make this even a little bit darker. And instead of lighting all these carriage lights with a radial gradient, which I really like, let's do it with a brush. And let's make, again, I'm clicking preset again to zero out everything. I'm going to go up here to nearly 4, make it a little bit more yellow. And let's see, I've got to add a little bit of a feather and then just click right in this. Let's make this even a bigger feather. And not so much. I don't like that what I did, so I'm gonna undo it. I'm gonna take the brush again, really make it a spot. In fact, I want to zoom in here a little bit. So again, Command or Control with the minus or with the plus button. It's coming in. I'm holding down the space bar, and I'm moving the picture around, going up to my my brush. Let's get rid of this mask. I might have. Okay. Let's make this darker. This is why I don't like to brush my mask as much. I can't control it, obviously. And okay. And let's just put it right there in the middle. And then let's move down, do another one right there, move down here, here, here. Let's zoom out. Okay, so now let's start doing some logical light. I've got these lights and I can even make them a little bit brighter now that, you know, they're all together. And let's start creating some masks with a radial gradient. And we're going to just bring the exposure down just a little bit because I don't want it to be bang in your face. But let's pull one here. And again, light probably is a little bit narrower than that. It's probably not up here. So let's subtract with a brush. Let's take it off out here. And as Bruce had pointed out, let's right click, duplicate the mask. Let's pull it over here, maybe adjust it just a little bit. You know, tell you what, let's make our masks on color overlays. And then I'm going to duplicate this mask and bring it down here. Adjust it to size just a little bit. Duplicate this copy. Let's bring it inside the light. Adjust the size. Then let's start playing with the brush tool on a big feather, and let's just play with some light here and there. Let's make things interesting. We can even take and light windows. Let's do another brush. Make it just a little bit brighter, really yellow. And I want to light in this window. Let's bring it down just a little bit. And maybe this window. Maybe this window. I need to make it a little bit smaller. You can get the idea though. I'm lighting certain windows, maybe a doorway, whatever it might be. Like I said, that's why I kind of like the radial gradient. I can be a little more precise. And let's darken the sky. Let's take the sky and make it much darker. So I got this, make maybe a brush tool, make it bluer in the street. Let's just make this in the street. So here's a before and after. I've just taken this and made it a nighttime photo. I've just got a few more examples. Any questions so far?
No questions in the chat, Dave. You must be doing a great job.
Yeah, well, great.
I got another quick question.
Pardon me?
I got another quick question.
Yeah, Bruce.
So, why do you do the adjustments before you create the mask? I always do the opposite.
Well, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I in certain instances, I'm a good guesser. So I've done this so often that I kind of have an idea of what I think it's going to be. And then I refine. But you have a brilliant point because, you know, sometimes you just want to see where the mask is, and then you can adjust from there. Whatever way is easiest for you, there's no real, I don't know that there's a wrong or a right.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I just never seen it done that way, and I was just curious. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, let's take her on auto. Let's select subject. Let me show you something that's really interesting. Let's not select subject. Let's delete this. Let's get into something new. In with your Lightroom, you have AI adjustments. There's adaptive portraits, adaptive skies, adaptive, subjects, and they have made presets for you. So I can go over here on the left-hand side and pick one of them. Let's just pick Glamour Portrait. And what it's going to do is it puts a whole series of those people ones, teeth, lips, irises, skin, whatever. And you can see let's just look at what they did for the face skin here. So they've downed the texture, down the clarity. In other words, they're trying to soften the skin. Let's take this and make her face just a little bit brighter. So they've given us a base to work off. They've taken her eyes, let's see, and they've made them a little bit bluer. They've upped the saturation, they've upped the exposure. Now, if I were going to do this for Evelyn right here specifically, I would, of course, go in and do my own. But, this is why having presets is so amazing. I mean, we just saved 2 minutes worth of editing by just clicking right there. And then, like I said, we can adjust. Let's go to her hair, and I want to brighten her hair just up a little bit. So, well, let's take this opportunity right now to dive into how you make them. So, here's a picture, and let's just do a sky. So it is picked up here in the sky, and I'm going to darken this down a little bit. Like I said, I love dehaze in the sky. I love texture in the sky. Let's blow up the saturation a little bit. Let's not make this too crazy, but okay. So then I'm going to take this mask. And now I could make a preset of just the sky. But for this instance, let's be a little bit more complicated. Let's duplicate and invert, and it's going to take everything on the land. So as Bruce said, I didn't do any of the adjustments first. So the first thing it shows is the mask. So let's lighten the exposure a little bit. Again, let's pop some saturation. Let's do a little bit of clarity. Let's take the highlights down, the contrast up. Let's make this just even a little bit brighter. So now I've got two masks that I've darkened the sky here, or here it is. Darkened the sky, and I've lightened the ground. So if I go over here to the left panel under presets and I hit plus, it asks me if I want to create a preset. And the two things you need to do here is to click masks and then have it support an amount slider. And these amount sliders are here because what this is you can just up or down what you've picked. And let's title this preset Dark Sky Light Ground. And I could just put it in the user's preset group. You can go over to here and put it in like Dave's adaptive landscapes, or I can just do, let's do teaching Lightroom group. New group. And teaching Lightroom. And let's create this. And let's create it. Okay, so now you see over here in teaching Lightroom, I've got a dark sky light ground. So let's go back, let's clear this. Let's go right to where we imported this picture. And Dave wants to save time. So I click dark sky, light ground preset, and boom, it's happened right here. What's cool about this is these are adaptive presets, or these are AI. So let's click on another picture that's totally different. I mean, this is totally different. And let's go over here and click dark sky, light ground, and it thought about it. Let's do it before and after. And it's given me the two things. And look at the masks fit this crazy valley. I mean, this was just the opposite. Over here, we had this kind of coming across almost flat. One click, AI thinks about it and gives me a good starting point. Now, again, we come here and really start to play, but all of a sudden, I have, and if you had a bunch of different, cancel. If you had a bunch of different pictures, this is a great starting point, and all because I made my own preset. You might want to go in and just do a sky, or darken sky, or just do a ground, or I could anything like that. Now, the one thing I will say is that when you create a preset, you got to be really careful as to what you pick, because if you pick the white balance and the clarity and whatever, that will be on your preset too. I like the AI presets to be just strictly top and bottom, and not have all these in here. And then, and once I'm here and I close out here, then I can go to the basic panel and I can do some global adjustments over here. Or shoot, I mean, if I wanted to do a color range on this green, right? And then play with it, but I've got a great starting point. So making your own presets and or utilizing what Lightroom has already given is a great starting point. And all you have to do is hover over these things, and it'll show you one after another as to what it would do to this particular picture over here. So you don't have to click and then wait and click and wait. You can just click over here. Let's do a little bit of creative stuff. Let's see. Let's do a select subject on Noel, and let's just see how well they got her. I'm gonna hit the O key. I'm not telling you the truth, I'm not liking this mask all that much. So let's add to the mask here with a brush tool. Let's make the feather very small. And here's a key for the brush tool. If I click, and again, just like we did on the beams, and shift, because my hand doesn't go down this line very well, I'm going to add over here. I'm going to hold down the space bar. So I didn't get her arm very well. So I'm going to add to the selection. I'm holding down shift. I'm hitting click, 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 click. I don't like that it went through here. So let's add to this selection by, let's do an object. And let's paint in with the mask, see what it does. Thinks about it. Yeah, and it looks like it picked it. And then let's do another add with an object. Now let's see if it picks up under her arm. Oh, I should be actually subtracting. I'm sorry. So let's delete. Nope. Let me start this again so that I've added the subject. I'm gonna add to the selection with a brush tool over here. I'm shift clicking. Sorry to take long. I won't do this too much. I won't make this perfect in any way. Then let's subtract with an object. Yeah. In here, selected. Let's subtract with an object under her arm. Okay, we won't mess with this any longer. I'm going to go back up here to fit, and let's just make her black and white. Let's take the saturation down. She's black and white. Now I worked on this, so let's do an intersect or a duplicate and invert. So it's picking the background, and let me take this. Let's make the exposure black, and let's even increase the black. Now I could call the picture, interesting right here, but let's really try to make this cool, and let's work on this mask that I spent some time on. So I'm going to take this mask, and I'm going to do another duplicate and invert. Gives me, this time let's make this mask completely white. Why? Okay. So I'm going to take the original mask, duplicate and invert it, and make this one don't know why.
Wouldn't you have to turn off the one where you made it black first to see?
No, because this is just a series of masks, just like Photoshop. This really should. Oh, my amount slider was down. So let's make this mask very white. Okay, so let's take this. Let's just let's intersect it with a linear gradient and show it only to here, and
Interesting.
make this really interesting. I probably want to take my crop tool and crop there, but so with just a few clicks, I'm sorry, my amount slider was off, but there you go. It's make something really, really interesting. As far as amount sliders, now that I'm thinking about amount sliders, if we go into another picture and we go up to profiles here on the right, let's pick something where we can really tell is crazy, like this profile. I use profiles to wrap up images. So you can also just take the amount slider and put a little bit of effect. Now, if you've done a lot of, cloning and adding a composite picture, you want to unify your picture. That is a good way to do it, is to go into profiles at the very, very end and and unify it. Finally, on my last picture, somebody had asked about the color grading. And this is some way to unify your picture at the very end too, especially if you come out of Photoshop. It's very, very chic to do, say, like teal shadows and like orange highlights. So here I've got a picture and I've just made it kind of a movie script, whatever. So, and that's pretty much what I have for you today. I'm getting right to the end. I'm glad I could fit most of the things in for you. The only thing I have to say, and let me, I don't know if I can unshare my screen, stop sharing. The only thing I have to say is that, and Darren and I were talking about this the other day, everybody has a camera these days, everybody, and they take pretty good photos. So what I show to people who have cameras are things where I pretty much over-processed. So I've taken all these Lightroom things and I've oversaturated them. I've done something really, really unusual because those are the photos that sell to non-photographers, something they feel they cannot do. When I show my photos here to this club, although I really kind of push the limits of the boundaries in a lot of the photos that you saw me edit for demonstration purposes, I'm much more subtle as to what I do. And that's my talk. I hope y'all have learned a little bit here and there, no matter what level you're at, and can play with a lot of these tools.
Yep, that was very good, Dave. Thank you. Lots of my head is hurting because there's so much to learn. But I did have a question from Gary Hubble. If you click on one preset and then click on a second preset, does it combine the two, or does the second one be your final preset?
That's an excellent question. And the only thing I can say is you almost have to play with them to see, because if in the first preset you say it's a high exposure and then the second preset it's a low exposure, what it'll do is default to the second one on the exposure, but default to all the rest of the changes that you had from the first one. So in essence, it's kind of combines things, but it does default if there's a conflict between the two presets, it'll default to the last one you did. So you can put 30 different presets and have the same 30, or let's just say 3. If you do it 1, 2, 3, and then 3, 2, 1, or 2, 1, 3, they'll come out with different results every single time, even though those actual presets are sort of set in stone. So that's an excellent question. And the only thing I can actually say is there's no predictability. You just have to try it.
And then he asked if you could name the masks.
You can, and that's really a good thing to do. And I name my masks. I name my tools, my custom brushes. And I know that I didn't do that over here for speed, but that is an excellent point, Gary. It's to keep them straight. Naming them is a good thing to do, especially when you get a lot of them. With the masks, it's never going to be as complicated as Photoshop, but you just double click on the masks in the right, and it'll allow you to write a name in there.
Okay. Bruce, so do you have a question?
No, just great job, Dave.
Well, there's a lot to go over. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you can just call me or relook at the video and go back to little bits and pieces. Like I said, it's hard in this group because you never know what level of Lightroom you're at. So hopefully I've covered from the basics and how to get around to some of the more new complicated stuff. But these masks are really great. I love them. So
My wife said she's just going to send all her photos to you for processing.
Unfortunately, what you learned is I'm not a good photographer. I'm just a really good editor.
Well, she'll just send you the images. You just send them back finished. Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Very good job, Dave. I mean, we don't have to leave the room because the police aren't going to show up because we're all at home. But you ended right on time. So, Chuck, anything?
No, I'm just sitting here diligently taking notes so I can try and use some of them against Dave.
He wants another
Yeah.
star on
I
his
was
jacket.
photographer of the year, but for all of you that really know, Chuck and I were head and head, neck and neck, and I think I beat him by 1 point. So I feel kind of guilty. I think I used one slider more than Chuck did for all of last year, and that got me over the top. So,
All right. Well, with that, thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. I think you did a great job. Again, if you're a club member, these will be recorded and on the website. And if you're not a club member, it might be a good reason to join the club. We'll end this now, and hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you on April 5th. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. Awesome job.
Great
okay.
job, Dave.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.